everybody, welcome to the WWE Slam. Thank you for joining me here on the DuPont Network, and it's great to have you here because we have a lot to talk about with WWE. Obviously, there's a lot going on that happened. Well, there's a lot that happened on Monday night, but also, of course, the controversy with Vince McMahon himself, right? There's a lot happening with him. The investigation is ongoing right now as it stands. We have a $12 million in hush money that he gave to former employees of WWE, and that seems to be where they've landed. They could find more, and it's possible that this ends up being the thing that takes Vince down. For those that have the dream that Vince McMahon could no longer be in pro wrestling, no longer be a part of WWE, this is the best shot that you've had outside of death from Vince McMahon. So, hey, do I think it's going to happen? I don't know. I'd have to see exactly what the final findings are. It seems as if there are significant findings, and it seems as if there's a lot of evidence for it. It's not speculation, and so we'll have to see. But I hope that this is something that is rooted out of WWE. I mean, this is a publicly traded organization. Stephanie McMahon right now is the interim CEO. I'd imagine that even after this investigation is over, if Vince steps aside, steps down, that she will be placed as the permanent CEO. She will not be interim any longer, but that remains to be seen. Everything right now is speculation. So we're going to have to find out what happens here. There's a lot to unravel here. But let's, beyond that, dive into Monday Night Raw and look ahead to SummerSlam a little bit, because SummerSlam is right around the corner. SummerSlam is what? Freaking 2.5 weeks away? 2.5 weeks away. So there's a lot to talk about with SummerSlam. The card is starting to shape up, headlined by Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. So whatever you may think of that match, it is happening. And I do have to say that if I'm a promotion and I have a main event of a show that I am trying to market to get people to buy the event, buy a subscription to the network, or to go physically to the event, if I have to market that main event to sell the pay-per-view as the last match, doesn't that tell you something that the fans are tired of this match, right? Like, if you have to resort to telling the fans, hey, we know you're sick of this, but at least it's the last time that they're going to be facing one another, so just stick with us and get through it. I mean, that's essentially the message. That's how you know that WWE it's an acknowledgement of them knowing the fans are so sick of this. I mean, it's like the 8th or 9th time that they've main evented a show, a pay-per-view, or a premium live event. So it's just, when you break it down to why they are calling this the final match, the last match, last man standing, it really is kind of funny and sad that they have to market it that way. And anyway, so we, of course, have that matchup, which is headlining SummerSlam. And I think that it's going to be a pretty bust-ass match. I really believe that match is going to be physical. It's going to be violent. Of course, Theory is running around, and he's been taunting Brock Lesnar for quite some time, taunting Roman Reigns over the last couple of weeks, and he has said that he's going to cash in. He said that he's going to cash in. Do I think he's actually going to cash in? I think there could be an attempt cash in with a failed cash in, meaning he doesn't actually cash in. The bell never rang, so he still is Mr. Money in the Bank, and yet it's still kind of a failed cash-in. So that Roman remains champion heading into Clash at the Castle, which is next in August overseas. And that's going to be headlined by Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns for the WWE Undisputed Universal Heavyweight United States 24/7 Championship, whatever the hell they call it, right? And so that automatically tells you that Roman is going to retain at SummerSlam. I would be very shocked if they don't. I'd be very shocked if they decide to go with Brock Lesnar here, or Theory. I mean, I'm a big fan of Theory, but I just don't think he's ready yet. Theory's a guy that has a lot of potential. I've talked him up on the show. If you guys have seen me before or heard me before, right here, by the way, the WWE podcast is the audio version of a lot of podcasts that I do. This is the only video version of a podcast that we do here, and it's exclusive to the WWE Slam, exclusive to this network, to the DuPont network. So I would encourage you, though, not only to watch the other shows that we have here, but also to check this out here at the WWE Podcast. We're available everywhere podcasts are available, and we have a podcast nearly every day dropping, covering AEW, NXT, every pay-per-view, every Monday Night Raw, every SmackDown, retro, you name it, weeks in review. And so I'd really encourage you to do that. Also, patreon.com. There's a link right down here. Hope I pointed the right way. Right down here to patreon.com/WWE podcast, where you can get everything ad-free. And you don't have to deal with the ads. You can just listen to a streamlined experience, and it gets you in the door for $1 a month, and a bunch of other benefits too. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But on to a little bit more of Monday Night Raw here. Let's dive in. Brock Lesnar opened the show, and he was talking about how Roman has been high on the hog, and he's been high on the hog since Roman beat him at WrestleMania. And then Lesnar referred to Reigns as a hog and said that he slaughters hogs on his farm every single day, and that Lesnar wasn't left out there too long to hang. WWE knows that Lesnar isn't exactly an A+ promo, although I think since this iteration of Brock Lesnar has come forth, Cowboy Brock, no Paul, that he's having fun. Like Brock's playing with house money, so that WWE knows that and Brock knows that if he's playing with house money, he's got no pressure on him. So he feels very comfortable for the first time in his career on the microphone. And Paul Heyman interrupts him, and that Heyman seems concerned that this match favors Brock. And you notice backstage the Usos intently watching Heyman as if he was almost advocating for Brock, walking a fine line, but still saying that I have a tribal chief, that I'm loyal to my tribal chief. I hope this is not a hint that he's going to flop back to Paul Heyman's going to go back to Brock Lesnar. There's no need for that. Lesnar's fun on his own. Paul is doing nicely with the bloodline. I don't think there's any need at all to have Paul Heyman go back and forth and back and forth. It's not about Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman can have a match. And it shouldn't be about Paul Heyman at all. But he's excellent as a promo. He can speak for Brock or speak for Roman, even though both of them don't really need it. And he's an asset to any show. So, all right, well, let's take a quick break. We're going to dive much more into Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar and the destruction that Brock Lesnar caused on Monday Night Raw or at the expense of the Alpha Academy. So we're going to get into that and, of course, the rest of Monday Night Raw, everybody. So stay right here. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the WWE Slam. Let's jump into a little bit more of the beginning of this show here with Roman Reigns, or rather Brock Lesnar. We had Theory come out, and Theory just can't get over the fact that Brock Lesnar F5'd him off top of one of the pods back in February at the Elimination Chamber Premium Live event. So he gets angry with Brock. And you know what? I like this, that WWE actually remembers things like this. Very often they just pretend things don't happen or forget things happen and don't care to bring them back up. So I like that it's back in February. That's what, like 4 months ago? 5 months ago? So it's fun that they brought that back up, especially for Theory's character to say, I didn't forget. Theory, I think, is doing an excellent job right now. He's taunting. He's taunting Brock, saying that after you two destroy each other, I'm going to be there to pick up the pieces. And I'll be the one walking out as the WWE Universal Undisputed Heavyweight, champion, European champion. I don't know. I'm just making up crap now. But after this, we had the Alpha Academy, who were really just there to be the sacrificial lambs to Brock Lesnar, surround the ring. And he ends up, of course, destroying both men. He attacked both men with a steel chair. He took the steel ring steps, ended up slamming it into both guys, and then F5'd Otis through the commentary table, as only Brock Lesnar can do. And boy, it shows you just how strong Brock Lesnar still is at the age of 45. That Brock Lesnar can still bring it. At 45 years old, he is still in like the top 1% of 1% of men, I'm sure, on Earth. So the guy is an absolute monster. And hey, this is a match nobody wants, but WWE is doing the best they can to market it as okay, we know you've seen this 100 times, but at least it's the last time, so just get through it, and you'll never have to see this again. Pretty poor way to have to, that's a bad position to be in. It's not the bad strategy if you're going to have this match one more time. In fact, it's your only only card you can play if you're WWE to get people interested is, it's the last time, go get through it. But do you really want to be in that position as a promotion to have to tell fans as, kind of a bit of a confession that, yeah, we know this match has happened a little too much. But all right, let's move on. So we got Finn Balor defeating Rey Mysterio via pinfall after he hit the coup de grace. The match came after Rey and Dominic were confronted by the Judgment Day, with Balor and Damian Priest suggesting that Dominic should join their cause before calling Rey a bad father. So, is this possibly the start of a heel turn for Dominic? Well, first of all, the match between Finn and Rey, no issues. Two absolute professionals. Wasn't a long match, but fine. No issues here. Finn beats Rey, as Finn should, given he's the more relevant at the moment in storylines of WWE, where Rey just has almost nothing going on, other than apparently being a bad father, according to Balor and Damian. But them probing Dominic to say that he should join their cause is interesting, because Dominic has had zero direction. The only thing Dominic has done in WWE is ride the coattails of his dad. He looks like he's still a sophomore in high school. He needs to grow some facial hair. Maybe I do too. I look weird without a beard. I gotta say, I'm like looking at myself on camera. I'm like, yeah, this is weird. So I'll grow it back next time, guys. Next week, I will not look like I'm 10 years old anymore. But Dominic should do the same thing. Dominic is a guy, a kid. He looks like a kid that needs to freshen up his look to look like, again, that he's not, having moving up day in middle school. So I think that right now, Dominic, if he's going to join Judgment Day, maybe this was just a red herring. Maybe he doesn't. But if he does, I would be a big advocate of that, because I want to see what Dominic has. Factions, by definition, are supposed to build new stars. Dominic, I think, would fit that very nicely. I think Dominic would fit that perfectly because he's an up-and-coming star. Yeah, Mysterio, Rey, his dad, got him in the door. But it's going to be Dominic who's going to have to actually make his career a career. Yes, he had an advantage, of course, of Rey Mysterio being your freaking dad. But I think that those people that are sons or daughters of legend stars, legendary wrestling stars, actually have it harder. Because, yeah, they can get you in the door, and that's like it's kind of a false advantage, because even if you get in the door and you're successful, you're still always going to be, most of the time, compared to that legendary figure that is your dad or your mom, and if that ever happens. So it's a very weird place to be, where people think, oh, your daddy got you in. It's like, yeah, but okay, he got me in, but now I need to prove myself, and now I have a higher standard to hit than somebody that has nobody that had to get into the door scratching and clawing. And now they have nobody that they have to live up to, nobody overshadowing them. So people don't often look at that, and they always think, well, Daddy got my job or whatever, Rick got my job. You think of all that stuff, and now Rey, of course, getting Dominic into the WWE. Of course, that's how he got in. But Rey, again, Dominic in the ring, no problem. He's as interesting as watching grass grow on the mic. The dude is like a houseplant. I mean, he is so boring on the mic, so scripted, so cringy. Dominic has almost no skill on the mic. It's just a fact. And you can work on that. In ring, I think he's more than what he could be right now, or more than what he should be, and he's exceeding expectations. But I would love to see Rey Mysterio and Dominic have a program together. I've been advocating that for years. But, all right, let's move on to the next match here, and then we'll take a break. The Raw Women's Championship, Carmella defeats Bianca Belair when Belair was distracted by Becky Lynch at ringside. Before the match, though, it was interesting. Lynch demanded that she receive a title shot against the winner, but she couldn't stop herself from getting involved in the end. Belair retained the title, since you can't win via countout, obviously. And we had Carmella pretend that think that she won the championship, holding it up. And, I understand as a heel that you don't always have to be the smartest, but how can you possibly, at that point in your career, or to get into WWE at all, not know that a countout never, unless there's a special stipulation, cause a championship to change hands? I mean, that's just like 101. But whatever. It is what it is. I'm not gonna rant about that too long. But this match was fine. Carmella held her own against a world-class athlete in Bianca Belair, and I think this is setting up for a triple threat at SummerSlam. Now, Rhea Ripley could come back from injury and make it a fatal four-way. I still think it's going to be a triple threat between Bianca, Becky, and Carmella, given that Carmella won, but it was only via countout, and Bianca retained. But it could be Becky-Bianca only too. The reason is, think about last year's SummerSlam. What happened at last year's SummerSlam? Bianca got duped by a returning Becky Lynch, who came in and beat her in 20-some seconds. So I'm going to dive a little bit more into this and some of the things about Bianca as a heel that I would love to see, and just turn Becky back to being babyface. Maybe they'll do a double turn. I want to talk about that and the rest of Monday Night Raw right after this. Welcome back. So before the break, I was talking about the double turn that's possible at SummerSlam. I would advocate for it because it's already happening. You have a babyface champion that is getting a lukewarm reaction at best. People are cheering Bianca a little, and you hear it's not boos, it's just indifference. So her reaction has been muted a lot over the last, really since she won at WrestleMania. They haven't done her any favors by barely letting her talk. I think people are also finally seeing through the whole EST thing, the EST gimmick, that is really a heel gimmick when you think about it, right? How is it not a heel gimmick to call yourself the EST? You're the best, you're the fastest, you're the strongest, you're the roughest, you're the toughest, all the estest, right? All the made-up terms that Corey Graves comes up with on Monday Night Raw. How is that not a heel gimmick? It is. But to Bianca's credit, and creative to some degree, they've been able to pull it off in an endearing way while still calling yourself the superior human being, like the ultimate human being to ever live. And somehow they've made it endearing. So I think fans are starting to get a little bit tired of the EST thing and starting to go, wait a minute. Have we been duped the last 2 years that this is really a heel character? So that, on top of Bianca, I think just would be a great natural heel. And part two of this is Becky Lynch, who fans don't want to boo anyway. They never wanted to boo her. You know what Becky Lynch's heel turn feels like to me? When Stone Cold turned heel at WrestleMania 17. Fans didn't really want it. There were times they kind of got on board, but ultimately there was a lot of resistance and pushback. That's what it felt like. It's like when you take two magnets and you put them together and they have that invisible force that you can't put them together if you don't flip it around. It feels like that. Like the fans just don't want to gravitate to booing Becky Lynch. And I think a lot of it too is that Becky Lynch, she's a naturally likable person. And they never changed her music too. She's fun to look at. She's changing her outfits and her look every week. She's feeling fresh. Her music is a huge thing though. Like they never decided to take away her music that is flat out babyface music. And she's been a heel long enough where there's no excuse to not change it. So maybe at this point they just say, well, why are we going to invest in now getting her new music if we're going to turn her babyface at SummerSlam? That could be the case. I would advocate for a double turn. I think it's pretty easy to do given that they're already tilting that way anyway. Flip Bianca and Becky, heel babyface, and I think you'll be off to the races. AJ Styles and Ezekiel defeated The Miz and Ciampa, I guess take your pick of the pronunciation, via disqualification when Ciampa refused to stop attacking Styles when the referee told him to stop. And before the match, Miz again talked about, so I'll talk about Logan Paul in a minute, but the match itself was fine. It brought Ciampa into the limelight for people that have no idea who he is, which is kind of scary if you don't. But Ciampa was on Miz TV, and if I see another Miz TV again, I mean, we see it every single Monday night. I don't understand the need for Miz TV. I'll say this. I don't understand the need for it to be on every single Monday Night Raw. I know that they look at it as a landing spot where it can be anything they need it to be. Anybody can be on the show. They can turn it into anything. Miz is a good talker. So I understand the temptation to constantly have a Miz TV. But for the love of God, can we not every single Monday night on repeat here, welcome to the most must-see WWE talk show in WWE history, welcome to, and then he just like speeds through it, and then it's like the same thing over and over. And to me, The Miz is like one of the most unevolved characters in the history of WWE. If you took somebody's career for as long as The Miz has been with WWE, like what, 10, 15 years? 15 years? And you looked at from debut to current day, I think The Miz is probably the number one guy that they have brought in. If you look at this sample size of 15 years, take anybody else's 15-year career and look at the evolution, Miz would be the least evolved wrestling character they've ever had. Now, the thing is, people say, he's great in the mic. Yeah, he is. But there's very few things that he says that are different. He acts the same. He wears the same ninja headband. He does the same poses. He talks, about Ms. and Mrs., his TV show. He has the same phrases. When my hand goes up, like all that. There's very little fresh about The Miz. And people say he's one of the most underrated heels of all. He's not one of the most underrated heels of all time. He's not the greatest heel. I've actually heard people say that. I think it might have even been Undertaker. Somebody said that they think that The Miz is the best heel that the WWE has right now. Are you kidding me? People look at The Miz and go, yeah, he's annoying, but people don't take him seriously because he's not a credible heel that you think could win. You know that he's the chicken, you-know-what heel. You know that's what he is. You know he's never going to win the big one, even though he has cashed in a couple of times and won. He's a transitional champion when he does that. And yeah, he was a good Intercontinental champion. He's had some moments. But the dude is the most unevolved wrestling character that WWE has had maybe ever. And they just keep running him out there. So, all right, moving on. Logan Paul. I don't care about Logan Paul, I have to say. And what's going to be funny to me, and not fun, or maybe funny, both, is what the reaction is if they really are trying to make Logan Paul a babyface and keeping Miz heel. I don't know how they don't see this coming. Every time Logan Paul has been on WWE television, he has been booed out of the building. And if they really think that Logan Paul is going to get cheered at SummerSlam, they don't understand like the millennials or Gen Z. This is a guy that most people don't like. Now he has 20-some million subscribers, very successful guy, good athlete, great athlete, and he has a charisma about him, no doubt. But if they think they're going to bring him in as a babyface, I can't wait to hear the reaction at SummerSlam when they absolutely destroy Logan Paul and likely cheer for The Miz out of respect. Because when you look at it, this is a social media star coming in to try to make a WWE career, a guy that has a really kind of shady past with things he's done in his real life. And he is going to be perceived to be here only because he's a social media megastar. And he's the outsider coming in. And even though The Miz is a guy that hasn't evolved much, he's the veteran. He is. And he has a lot of respect behind him. So I don't think that this is going to work well. I'm very interested to see how this works when it comes to the crowd reaction at SummerSlam with Logan Paul versus The Miz. I mean, that's where we're going. So, all right, let's take another quick break. And then when we get back, we're going to talk about the women's division. We're going to talk about Alexa Bliss and Asuka versus Nikki and Doudrop. And then the Usos and Omos and that six-man tag. So lots more to come. Stay right here. Hey everybody, welcome back to the WWE Slam. Before we continue, I would invite you check out our WWE podcast. We actually have, if I move my camera up, we have that's my full logo. The WWE podcast is an audio-only podcast that is available all the time, on demand, anywhere you get podcasts. I really recommend that you check that out because While this is a video-only podcast exclusive to this the DuPont Network, we do have a ton of other audio-only podcasts that are available that discuss Raw in depth, SmackDown in depth, other voices, not just me, which is a good thing, and retro shows talking about WWE's past, going back to the Ruthless Aggression era, the Attitude Era, NXT, AEW reviews. So it really covers everything. And I'd also recommend that you check out our Patreon page and go ad-free for just $1 a month. Of course, there's other tiers that provide more benefits. So, all right, let's continue on and let's talk about Alexa Bliss and Asuka defeating Nikki, ASH, and Doudrop. Not much to write home about here, other than a couple of notes. The DDT is being reestablished as a finish. Hooray! Because for the longest time there was this kind of I guess issue in WWE, this kind of illness, if you will, that spread where finishers evolved into transition moves where they almost never end a match when they really should when you think about what the move is doing. And they're now reversing some of that. And this is not just happening with the DDT. The DDT was a finish. Jake the Snake Roberts famously used it back in the early 90s. So you have Jake the Snake, who coined the DDT as a finish, most famously. It's now being used by Alexa Bliss and being marketed as a finish. We also have the super kick being used by Dolph Ziggler. We'll get to him. And the Usos, who occasionally use it as a finish. Carmella uses it as a finish. And also the powerbomb being redefined and re-educated as a finish, being used by our Intercontinental Champion Gunther right now. So I like how they're starting to bring back moves that really should have never been put into the transition category to begin with. So A+ to that. That's one takeaway I have. The other takeaway is, like, what are they doing with Alexa Bliss? You know, like, did WWE decide that they didn't have a spot for her for the Capital One WWE Venture card? I mean, is that why she had this kind of somewhat pointless match, even though she got the victory here, which is of course something that, you know, that's something. But Alexa Bliss, what the hell is going on? I mean, Alexa Bliss is one of the most talented females on the roster. Champion at one point, associated with the Fiend, just decides to, after getting, you know, sitting on playgrounds for a year and getting therapy and all this backstage nonsense, returns to the ring, stills with Lily. Last week or the week before, she was doing a Capital One Venture card, basically being used as an infomercial for WWE's credit card to get more money out of you, the fans. And the crowd booed the hell out of that. I love that. But like, what is happening with Alexa Bliss? Like, why? I don't understand what's going on. Can anybody else figure this out? Like, what do you think is really going on with Alexa? And do you think they'll ever bring her back or reestablish her as a top tier talent? She is, but they're not positioning her that way right now. So, all right. The Usos and Omos defeat the Street Profits and R-Truth via pinfall. Omos hit Angelo Dawkins with a choke bomb. R-Truth was angling at the beginning of this that set this whole match up to be the guest referee for the Usos on the Street Profits rematch at SummerSlam. And then when Omos entered the picture, it became kind of an impromptu six-man tag. Is Omos the special guest referee at SummerSlam? Maybe. But this matchup was really good. R-Truth again shows his talent and his charisma and his general likability among fans. The guy could easily have, if WWE ever decided to position it, or maybe the boat has sailed on this, so the ship has sailed, if they ever wanted to, they could position or should have positioned him as like a fun champion, like a fun couple of months with him as champion, like the Universal or WWE champion. People genuinely like R-Truth. He has an organic connection with the fans that is impossible to teach. It just happens or it doesn't. R-Truth has been able to connect with the fans on that level, and he's also got the very rare ability of creating organic comedy. Because WWE, Vince loves his comedy on the show, but 9 times out of 10 it feels forced, it doesn't feel organic, it feels scripted, it just doesn't work, it's not well executed. R-Truth is a guy that has that that ability to make anybody laugh. He is a just seemingly a genuine human being. I've seen documentaries on him. He grew up struggling. He made it, obviously, and he's just you never hear anything bad about R-Truth. So just a little bit of something about R-Truth, a guy that we very rarely talk about here on the WWE Slam or the WWE podcast. So, but this matchup was good. I mean, you're going to get really good matches with the Usos and Street Profits on either side of the ring. I mean, that's just a fact. But Omos getting the victory with the choke bomb, fine. I have no problem with that. I would say to Omos, stop roaring like a lion every 5 seconds. Every time you knock somebody down, you don't need to roar or whatever you're doing that you learned in like some acting class needs to just be tapered down by like a factor of 5. I understand what he's going for because he doesn't speak. He has MVP to do that. He has MVP to do that. So he's trying to use what he can use to communicate, which is not words, but body language and in-ring action. And so I know what he's doing, but I'm just getting a little tired of after every time he knocks somebody down, he has to go, ah, and it's like roar, right? I don't know. Little thing, but something I've noticed. So then guys, oh wait, before we get to the main event, I want to talk about one more thing, and that's Edge and his now pretty much confirmed it being Edge and not Bray Wyatt promos that have been being aired for the last several weeks now. We saw John Cena merchandise of "You Can't See Me" burning. It seems as if I don't know what this all is supposed to symbolize, that he's going scorched earth, that he's not who he was. I guess everything that he was is what he's torching. Maybe that's what it is. He can't come back and rejoin the Judgment Day, could he? People have talked about that too. Maybe he comes back and he's part of the Judgment Day and he says, "Thank you for beating the weakness out of me. I'm now ready to lead you guys." What about that? More than likely he's not. More than likely he's going to want to get revenge on Finn Balor, and maybe he'll be able to do that at SummerSlam. But this is Edge. So those of you that were duped, like myself, the first week or two, that it could be Bray Wyatt, yeah, I know. I'm sad too. I love Edge. Huge fan of Edge. But I think Bray Wyatt was believed to be a possibility with those videos and montages that were coming out. So, all right. Well, guys, we're going to take another break, and then we'll be back with the main event of Monday Night Raw and a little bit more talk about SummerSlam. So stay right here. Welcome back to the WWE Slam, everybody. And let's get to the main event of Monday Night Raw. Riddle and Bobby Lashley defeat Seth Rollins and Theory via pinfall after Riddle hit Theory with an RKO. Ziggler returned. Yeah, I said that right. You didn't mishear me. Dolph Ziggler in the main event of Monday Night Raw. I feel like that's just by the very nature of those words, it's an oxymoron. Ziggler and main event. Just like oil and water. But Ziggler returned in the middle of the match, sitting at ringside with a suit on, and he helped shove Theory's feet off the ropes during an illegal pin. That set up Riddle to hit the match-ending RKO. After the match, Ziggler hit Theory with a super kick. As the show went off the air, the crowd was cheering. They were on board for it. And may I add, as a compliment, a perfect super kick. Now, nobody does it better than HBK. HBK perfected it. But if you're going to mimic the guy, mimic HBK, do it right. And this is easily the best super kick I've ever seen outside of HBK himself doing it. Perfect kick, perfect way that Dolph Ziggler did it, perfect sell by Theory. Excellent way to end the show, at least in terms of selling a move and execution of a move. But this was, it obviously left us with more questions than answers. And as Jim Ross would say, that's what you want, right? You want to be left with more questions than answers because it makes you want to tune into the next show to get more answers, therefore being left with more questions, and the world keeps going around. So this matchup, by the way, what can you say? Again, it wasn't particularly long. I think it was about 10 minutes. But Theory, Rollins, Lashley, Riddle, you talk about a fatal four-way that I would love to see in like a 30, 40-minute classic. Top talent here. And I mean, I love everything about really all of these guys in terms of in-ring ability. Now, outside of Ziggler's mysterious return, mysterious babyface turn, I don't even know what to make of this. I don't even know if WWE knows what the hell they're doing with Ziggler. I mean, they seem to just sometimes do stuff and have no plan. I hope that's not the case with Ziggler. But this is easily Ziggler's best moment in like 5 to 10 years. So we'll see. I'm on board for it. Now, I'm thinking that they're going to give Ziggler a chance before he finally calls it a career. Because Ziggler, by many people's accounts, is one of the most underutilized talents that WWE had in the last 10 years, 15 years. So perhaps they're saying, okay, we're going to give him a run. Let's see what happens. You guys wanted it. We're going to give it to you, and we'll see what happens. But beyond that, I want to talk about Seth Rollins here. And not because he lost the match. Unfortunately, Seth loses a lot of matches. The only victory, by the way, I can think of with Seth Rollins as of late is against Ezekiel last Monday night. Yeah. I mean, if I have to point to that as the only win I can think of at the moment for Rollins in recent, at least in the last like month or two, that's how far Seth Rollins has fallen. Now, it's not that his character has fallen. His character is polished. It's understood. It's obnoxious. It's everything you need it to be as a heel, including confidence by Seth. Like, you believe that that's who Seth is. That's all awesome. It's the creative and it's the win-loss record that is actually starting to take a toll on Seth. And I really don't know why they haven't done more with Seth. I can't tell you. I would imagine that if Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns didn't have their winner-take-all title unification match, that Seth Rollins probably would be standing here today as we speak, your WWE champion. Now, do I think it's possible that WWE takes one of the belts off of Roman somehow, even though the belts are unified? They are single belt, physical belts, but they're supposed to symbolize a single championship. Maybe they are able to bring back one. They take the WWE Championship, throw it back to Monday Night Raw so that the guys can compete for a championship. That would really, I think, benefit Seth. I think Seth would be the top candidate to grab that championship. Now, if Theory does that, he's able to cash in on Roman. I wonder if Theory cashes in on Roman, say he pins Roman, and there's something in the contract that Theory didn't see that said it was for the championship, for the show that you are drafted to, right? Maybe that's what the case is. And if that's the case, the WWE Championship was the championship that was on Raw that he was drafted to. And maybe that's what it is. And so you get to have Theory cash in, take the championship to Raw that everybody wants to see, and also at the same time have Roman Reigns keep the streak going with his Universal Championship. So you have your cake and eat it too. You're able to take a championship, a top championship, put it on Raw so we have guys able to compete for something. I mean, I know there's the US title and I understand that, but you can only have like so many guys in that conversation. And you also are able to keep intact Roman Reigns' streak as Universal Champion. And there you go. I think they really regret unifying that championship at WrestleMania, which again, is further evidence that WWE often does things and has no long-term plan for it. They just do stuff and don't think long-term for in-the-moment gratification, in-the-moment buzz, and so I think that I would take that. And you know what? I would take anything that they would throw at me. And I am a big stickler for logic, congruency, consistency, and common sense when it comes to storylines. All four of those phrases are things that are often, at least one of those things is missing from a lot of storylines in pro wrestling, not just WWE, but AEW too. And I would forego all of those typical requirements to just have a Universal Championship, or rather probably a WWE Championship on Raw. I don't care if it's sloppy. I would let Vince come out and just say, hey, for no reason at all, I'm going to take one of the championships off of Roman and stick it on Raw and create it. I'm going to have a tournament or a battle royal, whatever, and we're going to have a top championship on Raw. So that's what I want, because at this point with Roman Reigns, they've made their point. We get it. He's had a legendary run, 2 years as champion. But now it's a net negative. Now it's no longer just about Roman, that they have more than mission accomplished that. It's now negatively affecting many guys on Monday Night Raw that don't have anything to compete for, and really kind of on SmackDown too, where he's barely there. He's there like one of every 3 SmackDowns, every other pay-per-view, whenever he feels like it, no house shows. And, more power to him. Hey, no problem there. But, so, all right, before I get on a really big rant, I'm going to take one last break, but stick with me. I want to talk a little bit more about the Roman conundrum and SummerSlam right after this. All right, welcome back, guys, to the close of the show here. Before the break, I was talking about Roman Reigns and how it's now become a net negative for the company, because they've done almost everything they can do outside of Rock and Roman. Like, okay, they'll get through Drew and Roman. That'll be fun. We haven't gotten that one-on-one yet. So that's something that they knew they had in their back pocket. But really, the only destination they can do right now, the only next big destination, Rock and Roman. That's it. That's all they've got left in the tank in terms of big matches. Can't go back to John Cena. Wouldn't make much sense. Stone Cold Steve Austin ain't coming back out of retirement again to face Roman for a championship. That's 15 years late there. There's really nobody. So that would be my recommendation, is to just, first of all, I don't want the championship in Rock Roman. So while Rock is the next big opponent for Roman, I don't want the championship involved at all. And I hope that Vince sees that and says, hey, if we keep the championship on Roman, especially if it's still unified, number one, the fans are just tired of seeing it. It's almost channel changing at this point, because it's just, can we move the hell on? But also, you're going to take away from the actual match itself, because the outcome will be more predictable, where people are going to go, there's no way Rock's winning a championship at this stage in his career. So there is a net negative there. Putting a championship in this match will take away from the match, just as unifying the championships this year took away from the match, because you took a spot from somebody that could have had it on Raw and stuck it all your eggs into one basket with Rock or Brock and Roman rather. So, but other than that, guys, I'm really looking forward to SummerSlam. I think that it's going to be a fun match between Brock and Roman. Violent. We'll see if the cash-in happens or any big returns happen. But outside of that, guys, the only thing I'll mention is the women's division on SmackDown with Ronda Rousey. I also would be very interested to see her in a heel role. She is more than ready. She's born a heel. Just who she is as a person. She is born to be a heel. So I would strongly advocate for Ronda Rousey to turn heel. Now, Bayley is close to returning. I don't know the status of Charlotte if she's close to returning. I doubt Sasha Banks and Naomi would come back, but there also is that hanging out there. So, final comment, and then we'll close it out. Women's tag team division, they've left the championships basically in the dark for the last 2 months since Naomi and Sasha walked out on May 16th, and they said they're going to have a tournament. They never had a tournament. People are complaining about it. I'm like, why? Does anybody really miss the women's tag team championships? Do I hear any outcry, any organic grassroots movement of people going, hey, oh my God, where the hell are those women's tag team championships? No. You know why? Because WWE did it backwards. They wanted to put the women on equal footing with the men, and they thought by doing that, even though there is no established women's tag team division, they're just going to stick a championship in there and the rest will work itself out. When in reality, it should be the reverse. You establish a division that you want to create a championship for, and then you introduce a championship. So right now, I think they're in the kind of, do I say, good position, a silver lining position out of all this, where they get to reset and maybe actually establish a women's tag team division, and then when things are settled, you reintroduce the women's tag team championship to the women's division. Just a thought. But thank you guys for joining me here on the WWE Slam. You can join me on the WWE podcast, which is coming to you everywhere that podcasts are available and covers so much. I mean, we have over 1.5 million downloads total since we started in 2018. So we're consistently in the top 50 wrestling podcasts on Apple. And so that's thanks to everybody who downloads it. And hopefully you guys check it out as well. So follow us on Patreon at WWE Podcast. You can do it at patreon.com/WWE Podcast, or on Twitter at wrestling_audio. So thank you everybody for listening. I really appreciate it. We'll be back here next Saturday night at 8 o'clock. Until then, take care, and I'll talk to you next time.